Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, Telumcel TV Plus, respective radio stations island-wide, online, and TV 15 viewers. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. At this time, I would like to invite the Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Egbert Duran, to address you. Minister Duran, you have the floor.
Good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the media, the CoM team, and a special good morning to the people of St. Martin. Today I have a few brief updates. I want to give just a few remarks regarding the roadworks. As I previously mentioned, we're experiencing some delays with the Union Road. I know a lot of people use this road, and quite a few have drawn their own conclusions as to why. I do believe that the contractor, Winter Roads, issued a statement outlining what took place. Due to unforeseen circumstances with the receiving of raw material for the asphalt production from abroad, and due to technical problems with the production and the shipment, the raw materials was not received on time. It was just the reality of the logistics. Sometimes things happen that are totally out of our control. No one could foresee that after struggling to get the material and having it en route, the ship would develop technical issues that caused the delay. I've personally spoken to the contractor and can say that on Thursday, June 1st, will be the beginning of the preparatory work, and shortly after they will be applying the asphalt layer to the road. I want to assure the people of St. Martin that Union Road will be resurfaced. We apologize for any inconvenience that this may have caused and the fact that it is taking so long. And again, I would like to urge everyone to please take caution when using this road. With respect to the hurricane season, as we know, it is right around the corner knocking on our door, and we're urging the general public to get ready by securing their property and tidying up and removing any loose debris or garbage. We will be sending out the hurricane cleanup schedule, which is a yearly thing that we do. And as it relates to the trenches around the island, we will begin to have them cleared into the ongoing season as we've been doing over the last couple of months. We are currently busy finalizing this process as well, and you will see the movement taking place in the different areas. Rolika, this is my brief updates for now, and I look forward to any questions members of the media might have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Ms. Roach, I want to give a couple of updates. The first one I would like to indicate is that the repairs regarding the Martin Luther King School in Dutch Quarter is progressing well, and it's on schedule, and let's hope that it will all go be ready for when school is open. Then we have a topic that is taking a very long time. That is the final payments or the balance of payments for the teachers from the National Summer School Program. The documents were sent again for approval, and just before coming to press briefing, I wanted to have the latest update. I were indicated that there are some minor adjustments and additional information that will be requested. In regards to the topic from NEPA, because you know we were also busy with some situations with NEPA. I am in communication with NEPA, and I have written them, and I am waiting the response to my communication. I would like to also inform that we know that we have had the FPE exams for the primary schools, which 494 students sat exams, and we are busy with analyzing the results of this exam. We also have the laptops and the panel boards that were ordered for, not the panel boards for the public schools, and the distribution of the laptops that began last week. And we had a very nice presentation in regards to that project. I would like to congratulate the persons who went to Nevis last week in drag race motorsports. where I think 2 of the teams did well and came home with trophies. We also have had on the agenda the Students of Excellent Academy, and I would like to indicate that that process is also ongoing. I will be visiting the students today, and the social worker who will take care of the intake is also being hired and finalized. And then I would like to invite the public of St. Martin on June 10th from 4 to 6 on the boardwalk, where we will be inaugurating a very special project that we have on the boardwalk, and it has to do with exercise equipment and volleyball and bocce games. And I would like all the public to come out and attend the opening of this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, to address you. Minister Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to everyone tuned in, to my colleagues, to the media. Nothing particular specific to the Ministry of Justice, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to once again congratulate Mr. Larry Hall on his win representing St. Martin and Curacao this past weekend. He participated in the Mr. Caribbean Island Continental pageant. As I said, he represented St. Martin and he captured the title. He is preparing to go on the international platform within the next few months, also representing St. Martin. So thank you to everyone who supported his representation of St. Martin on this platform. Also, just wanted to once again say happy anniversary to Anguilla. They celebrated their anniversary, 56th anniversary yesterday. Prime Minister and I were present for that, and it was a very nice ceremony. So I'm just once again saying congratulations on their anniversary. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silveria Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relika. Good morning. A pleasant good morning to my colleague ministers here this morning, members of the press, of course to you, Relika, and of course the members of CoM and the viewing public of St. Martin as well as abroad. As we maneuver this week ahead, I would like us to be reminded that in face of adversity, it's always crucial that we look inside for strength, resilience, and optimism to face these challenges. Sometimes when we butt our heads against some level of failure, we tend to beat ourselves up. And I would like to remind you that sometimes failure is just a signal from God to change direction, maybe change strategy, or even change the goal. So take the time to reflect and look for the rainbow in the midst of your particular storm. So despite what challenges we may be facing today, be encouraged to remember that each day, each week holds a promise of possibilities and opportunities for progress. So don't give up. This past week, I noted that there were several memorial services commemorating the lives of persons within the community who have been very, very impactful and are near and dear to many. And so I wish the families and friends, colleagues and acquaintances much faith, strength, and courage in dealing with the loss of the loved ones. And in fact, take some inspiration from the way that they live their lives so that your lives can also be as impactful. I want to also congratulate Mr. Ahmad Gums and the Men's Mental Health Awareness Foundation for their second annual execution of the spoken word competition this past Saturday. It was well attended, could have been better attended though, but I'm hoping that many will be able to capture and see some of the speeches that came forth from the young men within our society. We tend to always highlight negativity, especially around our boys and men. And I want to say that this was one of the times where these young men really shone. They were sixth graders speaking on the need to change the way we look at how we're raising boys to be strong and hide their feelings, etc. And I think especially utilizing our youth as a voice to bring a catalyst of change is the best way to go. I believe awareness is key, so I would like to congratulate this organization who has collaborated with the community to be able to do this for the second time. Continued success on the way forward. And of course, as we come to the end of Mental Health Awareness Month, Do not let it be just for a month. Continue to take care of your mental health every day, and continue to seek ways, different organizations on St. Martin, to collaborate to build a stronger St. Martin. As we speak of, we've remembered the victims and their families already, but I would like to have continued prayers going out to the families of those who lost their lives in Guyana. But I also take note that there was a life-altering fire right here on St. Martin within our own community, which affected, according to the report I received from the fire department, several families, at least 6 persons had to be displaced. So our hearts and prayers go out filled with compassion for these victims of the recent fire. Thankfully, no life was lost. But of course, it is still a loss when you lose all your belongings and the disruption that it causes to your life. However, I must commend the Dutch Quarter Community Council in their drive, and I ask that the community do all that they can to, where many donate a little bit, it can help. So there's an opportunity to assist with, of course, clothing, shoes, food, etc., via the Dutch Quarter Community Center at WhatsApp number 580-2531 and 522-9611. You can also drop off at the town hall meeting scheduled for June 3rd. There are more organizations, and of course we have our regular Red Cross and Freegan Foods and some others that do it on a regular basis. So as a community on a regular basis, instead of throwing things in the trash that are still usable, please donate, that it may be a blessing to someone in need. I commend all of you who pledge, who assist, and who add to the relief efforts. Together we can help the most vulnerable in our community. And of course, government will do whatever we can as well. Today marks the official start of the OCT technical workshops. I actually went to open those workshops that are now taking place. It is being hosted by the Fair and Sustainable Consulting Group, and it brings together regional expertise and knowledge from around the Caribbean, the OCTs, the overseas territories, represented here in discussing the multi-annual indicative program called MIP short. This formulation mission allows them as a collective to come together to discuss areas related to mutual interests, such as small island states and the types of programs and projects they are working on, collaborating and sharing with each other. The contribution is critical for the continued shaping of this program. This will continue tomorrow, and on Thursday at St. Martin, we will be launching one of the projects that is part of that program, which is the related to Resembed and is the early warning system project. This is on Thursday, June 1st. Also on June 1st, we know it's the official start of our 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, which will end November 30th. We've already seen some activity of development since mid-May, and so the United States Climate Prediction Center, which is part of the National Weather Service of the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, is forecasting 12 to 17 named storms for this season. Of those, 5 to 9 may become hurricanes. So that is something that we have to pay attention to, because even a tropical depression that stays too long over the island can cause severe damage due to excessive rainfall. So we must remain vigilant. One of the 4 predicted hurricanes are expected to at least reach 3 to 5, category 3 to 5. So there is no need to be alarmed. We have faced more than 5 already, so we know what it can cause. So preparation is key. As I mentioned before, we've already had our preliminary meeting, and we will meet again. The Office of Disaster Management, ODM, which falls under the Fire Department within the Ministry of General Affairs and headed by Fire Chief Disaster Coordinator Clive Richardson, appeals to all residents and businesses to plan, to always be prepared for hurricane seasons and or any other disasters. I know the last time we had a disaster was the pandemic, and there was a lot of laughter and jokes about what I said, but we definitely know how to prepare for disasters. Ensure that you have a 2-week supply at all times, ensuring that if you have elderly, vulnerable children, that you also have plans for them, especially where medication and care products are concerned. And especially seeing the last fire that we had as well, and understanding that certain persons, based on how they have built over the years, makes it very difficult for the fire trucks to be able to access the homes. We ask that persons remain very vigilant in terms of electricity, in terms of candles, and of course, we understand and know that it is the dry season and the weather is quite hot, so there's also the chance of fires in the bush. So please be careful with what we're doing. And one last announcement. Last week, I wanted to say this while driving back and forth to work. I noted a lot of road work, roadside cleaning taking place, and the young men working with diligence and pride to keep St. Martin clean. But I also noted people tossing garbage out of their windows, and they are there to clean, brush, and to keep the place looking nice. They're not necessarily, they're taking up a lot of time picking up garbage. And I think that it is unfortunate that it is we, the people of St. Martin, that are littering the island. So I'm appealing to you to take pride. Don't throw it outside. It's an old slogan that we've had. And let us all work together to keep St. Martin pristine. Thank you, Rolika.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. However, before we begin, I would like to inform that the Honorable Minister of Finance, Artwell Edion, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but available for any questions the media may have. The floor is open, and Bibi Hot Shaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, ministers. Prior to my question, I'd like to address the Minister of Education. Minister, it has been months. We haven't seen you here. I was expecting this morning to hear from you about the last year's CXC results. We still have students waiting for their results. There are students that have gone on to school and still cannot get their results from the inspectorate. That is in charge. Another thing I was expecting as Minister of Education, that you would have at least addressed the leak from the CSEC Math 2. So after my question, I'd like for you to really address those issues because I don't know if you're coming back next week. My question is to the Minister of Justice. Minister Richardson, the pilot project that is currently taking place for undocumented to regulate their documents. In October 2022, a press release was sent from your office, from your ministry, outlining that there are 3 ministries that came together. You spoke about it right here in this press briefing, which is TIAT, VSA, and Justice. In that press release, there's a number of criteria and all that is required to be able to qualify, including the exemption letters. I've received a number of complaints, Minister, of people who have requested exemption. They have not received a response. Just on Monday, the pilot project team here at the building have been rejecting applications citing that that press release has inaccurate information. This is more than once this has happened. Some people have taken their case to lawyers, and then their files are accepted. Can you explain us what exactly is the criteria and what is the bureaucracy that, people coming to the building to submit their files and then it is rejected?
So thank you very much for your question. First off, the fact that you are stating that people are coming to the building, you mean the individual is coming to the building?
Whoever is submitting the request for the
because it has to be companies that is submitting,
Yes.
and we have to ensure that all the documents that are required, such as your proof of your business, the registration, your taxes, all of these things are in order to submit. Oftentimes, when the story is given, it's very one-sided and it's lacking a lot of content of what's really happening. And then when you go and research it, then the individuals retract. But on a public platform such as this, your delivery is very strong. You sound very confident on behalf of whomever has spoken to you. However, the aspect of persons not receiving responses, they might not have received the response they want, because we have individuals as well that is seeking for the exemption letters that don't qualify, and so that they're advised not to. Another thing that we've come to realize is that we've had to make an adjustment to exemption letters because individuals have requested it on the presumption that their boss is going to apply for them, but then they're using the document to fly in and out of St. Martin, which is not the premise of it. So we have encountered a lot of aspects where individuals are misusing the opportunities as well, and so there's a tightening down on that. The requirements is a whole list that starts with VSA's requirements. So if it is a case that you have to show proof about your business as well as proof as to how long this individual has been employed with you, and you're not providing that, then, I would have to know about the specific cases you're saying that was taken to legal minds or a legal representation. I have not received any information about that. If you have the information, you'd like to share it with me, I'd like to do the research on it. But I say all that I have to be able to caution you that there are a lot of scenarios that are coming out of the best intentions with this pilot project, and not always do you receive accurate information. I've been told by individuals, I submitted my documents. I was on the airport the other day welcoming Mr. Hall in. Gentleman approached me, spoke about submitting all of his documents. When we checked, no, the only document that was submitted was a request for an exemption letter. But they are under the presumption that they've submitted everything. So we have to be kind of cautious as to when we are so immediately in the belief that everything is submitted and the department is not doing right by. Yeah? But if you would like, I would welcome you sharing the information with me, and I'd like to do more research. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Minister Samuel.
Thank you. Thank you, Bibi Shah, for the questions in regards to the CXC. Firstly, in regards to CXC, Matthew, and the leaking of the document, I know that CXC did their query to find out where the leak took place and what happened. I can get you a better update later because I did read what they found out at that stage. So that I will definitely get to you either in writing, or I will come back and make that known here in the press briefing. In regards to your comment that the results of CXC of last year has not been distributed up until now, you mean none of the results to none of the students?
Some students.
But then the way you state your statement, it will make people feel that CXC is now ongoing and the results of last year's CXC is not yet out. We know that there were 1 or 2 incidents where something happened with 1 or 2 students. We know that that was under review. We know that it was being researched, and I will get you the results on that review. But to make a statement that the results of CXC is not in is definitely not the way to give information to the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Before we proceed, I would like to remind the members of the media of the press briefing policy and procedures, and those will be fully enforced moving forward. Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Relaika. Good morning, ministers, colleagues. Prime Minister, my question is for you. Tomorrow will be 6 months closer to election, and we still don't have a date. I would like to ask, when will the Council of Ministers make a decision on an affirmative date for election? And is there any final indication as to whether we will remain within the 15 parliamentary seats or whether we will go up to 17? And I guess this also comes with an update on the cleanup of the census office. Thank you so much.
Unfortunately, Judy, you'll have to hold on just another bit for that information. I have not been able to sit with the relevant stakeholders within the organization to hash all of that out. There's usually a whole calculation for dates based on the last time, etc. And I have not had the opportunity to do that yet. So I do apologize for that because it was asked, I believe, last week. But I have not been able to schedule that in. The schedule has been quite bad. I know I did say it was January. They want a specific date. So the specific date in January 2024 is not yet known, but it is January 2024. and I will endeavor to ensure that I have a more concrete answer for you as well. I did mention last week that as the civil registry does its cleanup, it's a different number. So June now will be now the end of the second quarter. So at the end of June is when I will then determine what are the projections moving forward so that we can have a better idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Judy. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolaika. Good morning, ministers. My question is for the Minister of Justice. Recently, the Prosecutor's Office presented its year report 2022. The prosecutor stated that it had been a successful year. This begs the question, who other than the prosecutors itself determines the quality of the work of the prosecution? A lot of time and resources have been spent on small cases, while, for instance, the fraudulent actions against a lot of investors, hundreds of investors on this island, have not been investigated. These were referred to the civil court, with the civil judge saying this is a Ponzi scheme that, in the carbon case, that severely damages the image of this island. There's also money laundering involved, so the question is, why is the prosecutor not prosecuting this or investigating? The prosecutor office doesn't investigate environmental crimes, with exception of the KB oil spill in 2021, but we never heard anything of that anymore. You started an anti-counterfeit campaign. The prosecutor is not involved. All confiscations have been based on civil law, which means that there cannot be fines be issued. And also the importers of these fake goods are not investigated. There's a lot of cases, like, for instance, the investigation into the death of Lance Thomas, that we have had no results about. So I wanted to ask you if you share the opinion that it has been a successful year.
Thank you for your question. So I'm going to try to address, I want to start first with the fact that there are several, or at least there's a platform, which is the Law Enforcement Council, that basically does the reviews of the Ministry of Justice and the various agencies, and they are the ones that does a measure to know whether or not our agencies are functioning the way that they should, and those reports are publicly published, okay? So I think that your question being on this public platform is one that will be taken up with it. But I want to address your mention that the Public Prosecutor's Office is not involved in counterfeit combating of, and you are incorrect. As a matter of fact, there are several court cases that are ongoing where the public prosecutor is directly involved, and those records are pretty much public, so you can find information on those. There was another one you asked about the environmental aspect of it. We would have to look at the laws to see exactly how that is handled. But for the most part, I believe that the measure of whether the prosecution service is doing a good job or not lies with the observation of our law, the Law Enforcement Council. They would be the ones to be able to measure that. Of course, the minister can't do that as well. But there was another aspect that I wanted to address from what you stated that was also incorrect. But you said a lot, so I can't remember all of it. Another one was Mr. Thomas. You're incorrect there as well. And I did give quite an advice on that the public prosecutor came to a conclusion that the family was notified by the public prosecutor's office. If you wish to be able to get any information specific about that, then I would suggest that you either contact the public prosecutor, or if you are so willing to go to the family, totally up to you, but the family has that information.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Jacqueline. Stephen Sterling of PJDT Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Good morning to you, Prime Minister. Ministers, good morning to you as well. My question is for the Minister of ECYS. When the summer program was launched back in 2022, it was disclosed that this program would have been an annual event, Minister. Taking into consideration the fact that some teachers are yet to receive the full payment for the participation in the program, will such a program be held this year again?
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for the question. Indeed, the idea with the National Summer School Program is to make it an annual program. And the program itself, the running of the program and everything that happened at the program was and is a huge success. What we have encountered is the payment or the balance of the payment for the teachers that took part in the program for the public schools. So there was another school system that took part in the program, which was the Asha Stevens School. That payment went well. It is the complications that have to do with the payment of the public school teachers. So we have had some preliminary preparations for the National Summer School Program this year. However, we are awaiting the results and the finalization of the payments, of the balance of payment for these teachers to make a final decision. Because it doesn't look well that we're going to start the program again and all the issues regarding the payment of the teachers is not done. So I do hope that this can happen by this week, and then I can announce whether we're going to continue and how we're going to continue with the National Summer School Program, which is a very good program. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. My question is to the Minister of Romy. Minister, I believe last week you traveled overseas with NVGEBE to attend the Carolec. Can you give us the outcome of that meeting? And tomorrow begins the beginning of this year's hurricane season. Minister, can you tell us how prepared are we? Has the trench cleaning contracts been issued? Can you tell us if the pumps are working? And, if we are prepared to handle this season?
Thank you. Thank you, Bibi. I was going to mention about Carolec. However, I'm still awaiting some final notes with GB to bring that forward, which will be forthcoming within the coming days. However, it was a very inspiring work trip. However, one of the things I always say is sometimes when we see how advanced other countries are, it's a bit disappointing on my end personally. It also motivates me to want to thrive to reach to that next level. We had the opportunity to visit the CoM power plant in Punta Cana, and that is a very advanced a setup in the sense of they have different options for renewables and different things. I mean, I was even jokingly mentioned to the acting manager of GB that it's almost somewhere where you will want to hang out, to have a party. It's so clean and so efficient, and all the processes are automated. Aruba have a working agreement with CPEM in terms of the assistance with their plant, and the week prior to us visiting, there was a whole team from their power plant there doing training. So I did discuss with GB for us to explore this option. We had the preliminary discussion, hence the reason when I wanted to present, I want to present holistically and give back some of the key takeaways. Besides that, we had different discussions on how we're going to go as the Caribbean islands towards renewable. We got different information on best practices, also what has worked and what hasn't worked. And I must say that one of my colleagues on the NA list mentioned that we are too far in front to be so far behind. And I think that we should use this as motivation to get to that next level where we want to be when it comes to energy production and efficiency. The Prime Minister had recently visited Aruba and on the different ways on how we want to move towards renewable. And all these different initiatives tie into each other. We know that lack of manpower is one of our major constraints that we have. However, platforms like Carolec and the MOU and the different things that we signed within the last couple of years are ways and means for us to work together. We are members of these organizations and basically feed off each other to move to that next level. So that's on that point. With respect to the trenches, I mentioned a whole long paragraph about the trenches, but I think that you skipped that completely because I did mention it in my opening remarks that we are busy now assessing and going to clean the trenches. There has never been a time where St. Martin flood because the trenches wasn't in order. That is something that I put a lot of focus on, a lot of energy on the department as well. When there's too much water, they open the floodgates, they do what they have to do. I know that online there's a lot of technical experts that master all the things that should and shouldn't be done. However, I want to say that I have full confidence in the men and women that work within the infrastructure management department. They have been doing this for years, some of them even before I was born. So I have to lean and trust on their understanding that they know what they are doing when they are doing. No one is perfect. No one can predict weather to the full extreme to how far we can be affected. However, all of the trenches and everything will be cleaned, and we will be ready for whatever we may be faced. With respect to the pumps, we know that over the years we have some major challenges with the pumps. We are busy now with the Dutch government negotiating to get new pumps. We have a whole working group ironing out the technical details of those pumps. So that is well on its way, but the pumps are functioning, not optimally, but they are functioning. So we are ready, and I hope that we're not faced with a storm. However, if we are faced with a storm, we will do what we have to do.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Prime Minister, my question is for you, and it has to do with the whole Enya matter. I know you did indicate to me yesterday that discussions were currently in process, but I would like to ask, since this whole issue is tied to our liquidity support, since St. Martin does not have funds to even pay its liquidity, repay these loans at this current moment, would we have money to save Enya? And because obviously a solution would involve funds, because hundreds of thousands of dollars would be needed to save this company. And more importantly, should taxpayers' money be used to save Enya? The CBCS president, Mr. Dornbosch, had asked that a solution be sought by June 30th. Do you foresee us meeting this deadline, Prime Minister? Thank you.
Minister Duran?
Yes, PM reminded me that Bibi did ask a question about the status of the contracts, which I overlooked with my notes. With regards to the contracts I mentioned, I think it was a month and a half ago that we got a kind of conflicting advice, one from legal and one from an auditing perspective. So based on that, I highly foresee that we will have to retender that entire bid for the trenching cleanup.
Then, Minister, can you give me the legal basis for retendering?
The legal basis for retendering is as principal, you can always retender. That is the legal basis. And as I mentioned, we got two advices, one from an auditing perspective and one from a legal. And me personally, I would always lean towards the legal based on the fact that if anything would come out, it would have to be a court case. So the 9 out of 10, we will be leaning towards retendering. However, I want to reassure the general public the trenches will be maintained and everyone will be safe with respect to the trenches and potential flooding.
Prime Minister Jacobs?
I will pass the floor to the Minister of Finance to elaborate on the discussion. I did submit some responses to Judy on these questions. Indeed, we are still in the discussion process, but I will allow the Minister of Finance to take the lead on this answer.
So I didn't get all the questions, but from the ones that I do remember, in regards to the comment was made in regards to paying off the loans, that we don't have money to pay off the loans. I think that I would like to put a comment in the right context. The agreement we had with the Netherlands at that time for the COVID loans was a balloon payment in October. So of course we don't have the money to pay back the loan in one shot. That's 360 million guilders, obviously. So we're in discussions now in terms of how to pay back the loans. That's a different discussion. In regards to the Enya situation, it's unfortunate, and there's about 3,000 persons that potentially can be affected, potentially couldn't be affected, I'm being very clear on that, on St. Martin. So we represent about between 10 and 15%. And that risk starts potentially in 2025. So it's not as a risk of tomorrow. That risk potentially starts in 2025. So the request of the State Secretary of the Netherlands is that we start to look for a solution in case of having to now go and get extra funds from them and so forth. I had a meeting yesterday with the Minister of Finance, Curaçao, and his staff. And so we are discussing, because we do share the central bank. We also have been in discussions with the central bank also as a responsible stakeholder. And we have until June 30th to come up with this solution. I think we are progressing pretty well. We have to, obviously, we are working multiple trajectories at the same time. We're dealing with the loans itself, the refinancing, and now also have to deal with our position with the stakeholders of ENYA, which is, again, 10 to 50%, which represents about between 100 to 150 million guilders. Anything else?
Just a quick clarity, the 3,000 persons, those are in St. Martin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So out of the 30-something thousand, we represent 10 to 15% of that, which is then between 3,000 and change persons.
And do you think that taxpayers' money should be used to save ENYA, though?
So I wouldn't say it's taxpayers' money saving ENYA. ENYA itself is going through a process. So the central bank, and as I said, and the governments, of course, on St. Martin, we are in the process of trying to get the funds back. All right, so it's not that we're saving ENYA. The court cases with Ansari, the season of Malabé, the whole process, all of that is trying to get the assets that's due to these pensioners. All right, so between the three entities, we are in the process of trying to take claim on the assets that belong to ENYA. In the meantime, we do have these individuals that, not due to any of their fault, that will become affected due to this process. And that's what I'm saying. It's a potential risk in 2025 because there are things that could happen. There's a potential sale of Malabé in the future, right? Which then goes to the countries that could then also be allocated towards this. So there's different things that happen. Because if the claimant on Saudi happens before that then, because again, the claim is to get the money back to be able to fill this deficit that was created by him. So in the meantime, though, as a government, we are responsible and we have to take care of the people. So if everything that we do in government is actually taxpayers' money, subsidies, sport, everything we do is taxpayers' money. We took 360 million in loans. We took all the COVID loans. We took on our responsibility for the SRP, right, to have businesses survive, right. So at that point in time, it wasn't a question on should we use taxpayers' money, because we took the loan with no payback terms for any company in St. Martin or any individual in St. Martin. So the process we are going through now, the refinancing process we're going through now, was because we want to make sure that our people were in good standing. And again, that's now coming back to taxpayers' money at some point in time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Judy, Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you. Minister Doran, coming here, I passed Pit 3 in Dutch Quarter, and there was a truck and two people working there. They were with their faces above the fume, not protected. So I asked one of the workers and asked him if he had vaccination for hepatitis A, which most sewage workers around the world are having to protect themselves. They don't know about that, and they have nothing to cover their faces or their mouth or their eyes. Having collected some samples of water around the island and had them tested at the environmental lab in Simpson Bay, it appears that the public is also not protected, because from the test that I have here, the water in Bobby's Marina is the number of fecal bacteria in the marina is too numerous to count. So it's actually sewage water. Then when you had the press release about opening the fresh pond, which is full of sewage water, into Great Bay, the question is then maybe we should test there also and see how many fecal bacteria are there in Great Bay then. You have the results of the yearly testing of Water by Nature Foundation. They have submitted those to you, but you haven't made them public in the last couple of years since you are minister. The question is, why haven't you made those results public? And why is the government not using its own government-owned laboratory in Simpson Bay to do water tests?
I think you asked three questions, so I'll try to come down to them as you pointed them out. With respect to the companies and their staff not using protection, I spoke to the management of the infrastructure department about this a couple months ago, and they did give instructions. So if that's not taking place, then we will have to do our inspections. However, again, it is government's responsibility to make sure that things are taken care of, but government cannot babysit companies that have to do what they have to do. We have rules and regulations, safety regulations, for instance, when things are being demolished, and we put those guidelines out. Now, if companies are not adhering to that, we have to follow up, just as the roadside, if the persons are not using the protective screens to stop stones and different debris from going in people's car, those are rules that we have set. So if the people are not doing it, I thank you for that, that research and that point. So I will forward this to the department, and we will see to it that they are doing it. And if they have to be punished for not complying, then we will do that. With respect to the different test results that you mentioned there, I would like to get them if you can share them, and I'll share it with the policy department and inspection so that we can follow up. On the point, again, I think my colleague, Minister of Justice and Education, highlighted the way the media brings across certain things. If I'm someone home watching, I will assume that the Ministry of Rum is hiding results from Nature Foundation, which is absolutely not the case. I do not know that they haven't been published, so I'll make sure that they are, and also find out why they haven't been published, or if they ever have been published before in the past, because the Nature Foundation has a SLA with government, which they report to us on a yearly basis, and I'm not sure that if those reports were ever published. If a question is asked here, we respond to it. So I'll look into that and make sure that it is published. And I look forward for you sharing those results. And if there's anything else that we need to do from an environmental perspective to safeguard the health of our people, I'll collaborate with the Ministry of VESA, and we make sure to get that message out. So I look forward to you sharing that information.
Can I please urge you to do the government their own water testing and take samples and have them tested at your lab?
Our lab, you mean SLS?
Yes.
Okay.
This is SLS results.
So when you're referencing our lab, which lab are you referring to?
The environmental lab from SLS in Simpson Bay.
So SLS, okay.
Yes.
Clear.
But the
Thank you,
report from
Jacqueline.
the
Can we move
Nature
forward,
Foundation-
please? We're running out of time. Stephen Cyrillian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Rich. And to fall back on the question of Jackie, Minister Fromme, I'm sure you would agree that the running sewage water on St. Martin is worrisome. What is your department? I remember clearly that the minister, your deputy, Minister of Finance, said some time back that a committee was being established to look into the sewage water running situation on St. Martin. What is your ministry doing, Minister, to effectively deal with this problem once and for all? Are funds being issued? We don't hear anything about those.
Thank you very much for your question, Stephen. In certain areas, you could drive around the island, and you could see that persons actually have pipes heading towards the road from their homes. Now, again, we can do so much, and we can find and see so much. However, there's some accountability on the citizens themselves that are committing these atrocities, so to speak, because even in Dutch Quarter, it's happening as well. We have the inspection department that is going around on a daily basis. One of the main places that had the attention for the last 2 months was the South Reward area, where you will see water was just on a constant, aggressive flow, so to speak. When we did our research with GB, with the individual, and also with the inspection department, and police was involved as well, we found where there were some GB leaks indeed, but that did not stop completely. So now we're going into all these things. And I do hope, I'm going to mention it here, when we start to shut down certain businesses and certain homes and apartment complex, that the same energy is traversed. And you, the media, would assist me in carrying out this message, because that is the next step that we're going to have to lean towards, because there are instances where persons get a building permit to build a 3 or 4 bedroom dwelling, then they create 4 or 5 apartments, no proper sewage pit, and this is what leads up to these problems. So I do hope with all the energy that you, the media, will assist me in bringing across this message, because that is the next step that we're going to look towards. Because it's unfortunate, some of us try to safeguard our health in different ways, and other individuals just choose to be not compliant with the situation and go that route. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Thank you, Stephen, for the question. We now move on to the third and final round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. I'll ask this question to the Minister of Finance, since we don't have, I believe, the Minister of VSA who would have probably gotten this answer. Minister, since the passing of the 2023 budget, can you tell me if the subsidy for Turning Point, if that subsidy have been reinstated? There are lots of people who actually go to Turning Point to get assistance, like counseling and other things like that. And because they're not getting subsidy from VSR, these people are being turned away. So since the passing of the budget, are you aware if the subsidy have been reinstated? I do know that they are subsidized by Justice.
Oh, so now I get your question. You're wondering if they are subsidized by VSA and Justice? Because they are subsidized by Justice.
They are subsidized by VSR, but they used to receive it.
They're not subsidized by VSA. They're
They
subsidized.
used to before, in the past.
Yeah, so currently they're only subsidized by Justice.
Okay. Thank you, Bibi. Thank you, Minister Edion. I would like to inform the members of the media and the viewing and listening public that the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, had to depart the meeting as he does have an 11 o'clock meeting scheduled. I would now like to invite Judy. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. And I had a whole lot of questions for the Minister of ECYS. I hope he's here next week so that I can ask that. Finance Minister, Mr. Irian, the central bank was in Parliament last week, and they indicated that a legislation for a basic bank account has been submitted to both St. Martin and Curacao, and that this needs to be enacted prior to the going into effect of the new Caribbean Guild, or the new currency. My question is, can you give us an indication as to when you think that legislation will reach the floor of Parliament, will reach Parliament? What stage is it at the moment? And what is the trajectory prior to it reaching that stage? Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for the question. So the comment was made that the preference is to have that done before that enactment of the Guild. So not that it's going to happen, that's a preference, and that's a push we are having also. So that process, it's in the stage of the Rafa Navis, the Council of Advice. So as soon as they give their feedback, it comes back to government, and then from there on, we then could schedule the meeting in Parliament. So we hope to have that done in the fourth quarter of this year.
The fourth quarter of this year?
Yes.
I'd just like to ask as well, we are already 6 months to the ending of the year. Do you foresee us, yourself, introducing in time the new sticker system for motor vehicles? Do you think you can reach that target?
Yes, so we're doing a pilot project soon. I also included you in the other project. I hope you saw the email. So you'll also be included in that second pilot project. Both should be happening in the next couple of weeks. Well, the other one starts now, and that one should start in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Thank you, Judy. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would like to continue on the sewage problem, but then related to VSI and also to the Prime Minister for hurricane preparedness. I was informed that when somebody lets the sewage run from a terrain or a house onto the road, it's a FROMI issue. But if the sewage runs to the neighbor's terrain, then it's a VSA issue. And also the wells on St. Martin fall under VSA. We also had the well water tested, and there was full of E. coli, enterococci, and the total coliform was too numerous to count. So actually the well water was sewage water. So when there would be a hurricane after, people would depend on the wells on the island, and they would line up to get well water. How is the government going to prepare this and have maybe the well water tested and make sure that some wells that are clean are protected for in case a disaster happens and people have to rely on water?
Prime Minister Jacobs.
Yes, thank you for that information. I think similar to the Minister of Vromi, and seeing the absence of the Minister of VSR, I think that information would have to be shared with the ministry for the relevant inspectorate departments to do their due diligence. Of course, protecting our waters, and we've had so many discussions. It's one of the discussions for projects for St. Martin is wastewater. And we know that we have a lot of underground waters. We have rain and it travels, and we have hills. So, what you call that? Gravity takes the water from up down through people's yards. So even if it's a VSI issue, if it comes from much higher up, it happens to pass through your yard. Finding the source is usually the problem, because I've had some personal experience with it, with where I am living, where there are a lot of wells in Dutch Quarter as well. So indeed, this information will be passed on to the Ministry of VSI to do its due diligence. And of course, we would want to ensure that the well water is safe to be used. People are using the wells all the time, as you mentioned. But we know historically and culturally that no one consumes well water without doing a process of boiling it and doing some other things. So I know when we put out our disaster announcements, we give information to people as to what to do with water that is collected to make it safe for drinking specifically. But indeed, the necessary testing should take place as soon as possible. And we look forward to receiving that information and updating the public of St. Martin.
Can I ask something?
We do have 1 more minute, so I would like to allow Stephen his question. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. My question is for the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, following the signing of the treaty on Friday, President Louis Massenton spoke of a committee to be established to regulate and oversee border issues in the event such might occur. Have you been part of those discussions? And if yes, can you at least expound on what you really meant by this committee to be put in place?
Yes, Stephen. So with the signing of the treaty, it now allows for that. So a lot of people wanted to know, does this replace Concordia Treaty? Does this, is it a new treaty, etc.? It does not replace any other treaty. The Concordia Treaty did not specify where the line ran. So it clarifies a part of the Concordia Treaty. There are 2 actual committees that have to be established, one for the care of, for instance, the monuments around the borders or that are at the borders. So there's a clear agreement on what French St. Martin, what Dutch St. Martin will do to maintain the area and keep it clean and neat. And the other committee is more for collaboration and let's say, cooperation. So then further expounding upon the Treaty of Concordia, which we know we collaborate on many areas. And so I've mentioned in the previous discussions that we're going to the next quadripartite meeting, which hasn't happened for 4 years, for the first time in 4 years, to actually start to sign, whether it's letters of intent, MOUs, and protocols in several areas, justice, education, and hopefully the health one is also finalized, to go towards a treaty in the future, but also in terms of the 2 governments of St. Martin collaborating. So that platform, that collaborative platform, that committee has to be founded, finalized, put together to be able to facilitate further discussions, government to government, because we understand the structural constitutional collaboration that happens through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in The Hague and the Overseas Ministry, or the Interior and Overseas Ministry from France. That is the technical high-level discussions, but there are certain authorities that the French collectivity does have that we can collaborate and work together on, and that is the platform that Mr. Mossington was discussing as well. So there is still a trajectory for the finalization of the treaty, and so in the next few months, there's a time to finalize all those processes, so we hope to have that done before the end of the year. Have a clearer picture on those agreements for the further collaboration. I'm hoping I've clarified. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Relika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.